In the uncodified Constitution of the United Kingdom, the monarch possesses various powers, which includes appointing and dismissing the Prime Minister and other ministers, summoning and dissolving Parliament, granting or refusing royal assent to bills, commissioning officers in the armed forces, commanding the armed forces, appointing members to the King's Council, issuing and withdrawing passports, granting prerogative of mercy, bestowing honors, ratifying and making treaties, declaring war and peace, deploying the armed forces overseas, recognizing foreign states, and crediting and receiving diplomats. However, it's important to note that these powers are largely exercised following constitutional conventions, the guidance of elected officials, historical practices, statutes, and conventions, with real political power resting with elected representatives in Parliament. The monarch's role is predominantly symbolic and ceremonial. The executive branch is led by the Prime Minister, presently Rishi Sunak, who is appointed by the monarch and chosen from the political party with the majority in the House of Commons. The Prime Minister forms the government, selects ministers, and sets government policy. The cabinet, consisting of senior government ministers, plays a crucial role in policy decisions and meets regularly. The United Kingdom is divided into parliamentary constituencies. Each constituency elects a member of Parliament to the House of Commons during general elections or by-elections. While House of Lords consists of two types of members, Lords Temporal and Lords Spiritual. Lords Temporal includes life peers who are distinguished servicemen in various fields, such as politics, business, science, arts, and public service, and 92 hereditary peers who inherit their titles and are elected among their peers. Lords Spiritual represent the Church of England and include 26 bishops. The House of Lords reviews legislation initiated by the House of Commons, proposing amendments, and exercising a suspensive veto, which allows it to delay legislation for up to 12 months. However, Lords cannot veto money bills or major manifesto promises, and persistent use of the veto can be overridden by the Commons. But Britain was not always like this. It has a long history of being a class-based and hierarchical society, with the monarchy, aristocracy, and churches holding significant power and ruling in their own interests. These institutions were resistant to sharing power with ordinary people. In this video you will know how Britain became a democracy from absolute monarchy. Great Britain holds a unique place in the development of modern democracy, having pioneered many political cornerstones of the system. These include constitutionalism, limitations on executive power, parliamentary government, and a multi-party system. Britain was the first to adopt a modern constitution, although unwritten. To understand genesis of British democracy, you have started with Battle of Hastings. In 1066, England witnessed a pivotal moment when William, Duke of Normandy, invaded and defeated the Anglo-Saxons at the Battle of Hastings. William claimed the English throne, setting in motion significant changes which were end of feudalism and formation of centralized government. One of the key figures in this period was William's descendant Henry II, who ruled from 1154 to 1189. He held power over not only England but also most of the western half of France. Henry, known for his wisdom and energy, is considered one of the most gifted statesmen of the 12th century. Henry II made a significant contribution to the evolution of democracy through the introduction of jury trials rather than royal justice. This innovation replaced the earlier practice of trying individuals in feudal lords' courts, often involving duels or ordeals. This system gained popularity as will of rulers was replaced with common law that prioritizes customs and principles. During the reign of King John, who succeeded Richard the Lion-Hearted, tensions between English nobles and the king escalated due to the loss of French territories and attempts to raise taxes. In 1215, in response to the king's unpopular actions, angry nobles forced John to grant guarantees of traditional political rights. These demands were formalized in written form as the Magna Carta, or Great Charter. The Magna Carta laid the groundwork for English respect for individual rights and liberties. While primarily a contract between the king and English nobles, it introduced key principles that limited the monarch's power over all English subjects. It implied that monarchs must govern in accordance with the law, rejecting arbitrary king's rule. Out of total 63 clauses, 2 crucial clauses of the Magna Carta are worth noting. Clause 12 required the king to obtain popular consent before levying taxes, and Clause 39 established the right to a jury trial and protection under the law, known as due process of law. Over time, These principles were extended to protect the liberties of all English citizens. In 1295, during the reign of King John's grandson, Edward I, England faced the need for funds to support another war in France. Edward sought broad support for the war effort, leading him to convene a significant gathering. This assembly included not just nobles but also lesser knights and leading citizens of towns. Edward justified this decision by asserting, "What affects all, by all should be approved." This historic assembly, known as the Model Parliament, set a precedent for future parliaments. It played a pivotal role in approving taxes, making reforms, and consolidating laws. By the mid-1300s, knights and burgesses gained an official role in government, forming the House of Commons as the lower house of Parliament. Nobles and bishops continued to meet separately in the upper house, the House of Lords. While not a fully democratic body, Parliament's existence marked the principle of representation. In the coming centuries, Parliament's power of the purse, the authority to approve certain expenses, granted it substantial influence in governance. The House of Commons, which controlled financial matters, gradually attained equal status with the House of Lords. Parliament began viewing itself as a partner in governance alongside the monarch. It played a role in approving taxes, passing laws, and advising on royal policies, marking a significant development in the limitations placed on the monarchy. During the 1600s, monarchs in continental Europe asserted greater authority over nobility compared to the Middle Ages. These monarchs claimed not only the right to rule but also absolute power. They argued that kings derived their authority from God, a concept known as the divine right of kings. Proponents of divine right contended that monarchs were chosen by God and accountable only to God, rejecting any constraints on their rule. The reign of Elizabeth I, the last Tudor monarch of England, ended in 1603 without an heir, leading to a shift in English history. The subsequent rulers, the Stuart monarchs, originated from Scotland and strongly endorsed the concept of divine right, sparked conflicts with Parliament and the English people. James VI of Scotland ascended to the English throne as James I, marking the beginning of Stuart rule in England. His limited understanding of English laws and institutions led to disputes with Parliament over various issues like religious reforms, in which Puritans, a religious reformers group, aimed to simplify the Church of England, also known as the Anglican Church, by purifying its doctrines and ceremonies. They believed it still resembled the Roman Catholic Church too closely. This led to clashes with James, the head of the church. Use of the Star Chamber. James employed the Star Chamber, a royal court of law, for justice administration, sidelining parliamentary courts that followed common law. Accusations of tyranny against the king began to arise. Financial matters. James inherited a substantial debt from Elizabeth I and desired additional funds for his extravagant court and military endeavors. However, Parliament refused to grant extra funds, leading James to seek alternative means of revenue. Tensions escalated further during the reign of Charles I, James's son, who assumed the throne in 1625. Charles needed financial support and sought it from Parliament in 1628. In exchange for granting tax revenue, Parliament aimed to curtail royal power by presenting the Petition of Right. The Petition of Right contradicted theories of absolute monarchy and is considered a landmark in constitutional history. It demanded an end to taxation without Parliament's consent, unlawful imprisonment of citizens, quartering of troops in private homes, maintenance of military rule during peacetime. Charles reluctantly agreed to sign the petition to secure the funds he required but later disregarded its commitments. In 1629, he dismissed Parliament and refused to reconvene it. Charles's actions provoked widespread discontent, and the situation escalated. In 1642, the English Civil War erupted, pitting royalists, who supported the monarchy, against anti-royalists, who favored Parliament. After years of conflict, the anti-royalist forces, led by Puritan leader Oliver Cromwell, gained control of the government. Charles I was denounced as a tyrant, murderer, and public enemy, and subsequently executed in 1649. Following Charles's execution, Oliver Cromwell established the Commonwealth of England, a republic. He faced multiple uprisings against his rule and opposition from both monarchy supporters and radical Puritans. However, Cromwell's rule turned increasingly authoritarian, leading to widespread dissatisfaction. His death in 1658 was met with relief by most English citizens. Cromwell's son, Richard, succeeded him as Lord Protector but proved to be an ineffective ruler, and the military dictatorship remained unpopular. In 1660, a new parliament restored the monarchy and invited Charles Stuart, the son of Charles I, to assume the throne. This period, known as the Restoration, saw the monarchy return but with limitations. Parliament retained the powers acquired during the previous 2 decades of struggle. For instance, the monarch could not impose taxes without Parliament's consent. In 1679, Parliament passed the Habeas Corpus Amendment Act, a significant step in the protection of individual rights. Habeas corpus ensures that when someone is arrested, they must be brought to court, informed of their charges, and subject to a legal review, preventing wrongful or unjust detention. This right remains vital in contemporary democracies. When Charles II died in 1685, his younger brother, James II, a Roman Catholic and proponent of divine right, raised concerns about the establishment of Catholicism as the official religion. Fearing the continuation of Catholic rule due to James's son, Parliament withdrew support from him. Parliament offered the English throne to James's Protestant daughter, Mary, and her husband, William of Orange, ruler of the Netherlands. William invaded England, and James fled to France. In 1689, William and Mary were crowned co-rulers of England. In an event known as the Glorious Revolution, this pivotal moment established Parliament's right to limit the monarch's power and determine succession to the throne, hence the start of constitutional monarchy. In 1689, William and Mary accepted an English Bill of Rights from Parliament, outlining essential rights and liberties for the people. This bill restricted the monarchy's authority and safeguarded free speech within Parliament. The English Bill of Rights prohibited the monarch from suspending laws, taxing without parliamentary consent, or maintaining a peacetime army without Parliament's approval. It also granted the right to petition the king for remedies against government grievances and protected against excessive bail and cruel and unusual punishment. You have to know that members of Parliament during this time were nobles, clergy, or wealthy landowners. During the 19th century, as the memories of the violent French Revolution waned, there was a growing consensus in Britain that parliamentary reforms are needed. In the late 18th century, Charles Grey, a future Prime Minister, introduced the idea of electoral reform to Parliament between 1793 and 1797. However, his efforts were met with rejection and minimal support. Frustration grew among the population, leading to mass gatherings. The most significant event was the Peterloo Gathering in 1819, where cavalry forces brutally dispersed the crowd, resulting in the deaths of around 15 demonstrators. Despite the severity of the incident, it took another 10 years before voting rights were even remotely reconsidered. After over 3 decades since Grey's initial attempts, the first steps toward electoral reform began with the First Reform Act in 1832. The Reform Act of 1832, also known as the Representation of the People Act, was eventually passed. However, its impact was limited and disappointing. To be eligible to vote, a man had to have property or land worth £10, a substantial amount in 1832, deliberately out of reach for most working-class individuals. This law also formally excluded women from voting. The act's impact was insufficient to satisfy the reformist movement, but this reform was also a ray of hope as it showed change is possible. In 1838, the Chartist movement emerged with clear objectives, including complete male suffrage, salaried MPs, reasonable voting boundaries, and secret ballots. However, these objectives did not sit well with anti-reformists who believed that the 1832 Reform Act had been sufficient. Nevertheless, Benjamin Disraeli's government passed an act in 1867. Over 30 years after the 1832 Reform Act, further electoral reform took place in 1867. The 1867 Act extended voting rights to all male heads of households having property exceeding £50. The 1884 Reform Act marked a significant turning point. A pro-reformist government, led by William Gladstone, challenged not only the House of Lords but also the remaining opposition parties and even the monarchy, which clung to traditional views, especially concerning women's rights. The Gladstone government was determined to bring about change, and Queen Victoria, in particular, vehemently opposed reform and expressed her concerns to Gladstone, warning him to be cautious with his radical views. Gladstone was challenging the established order, which he saw as outdated and obstructive to the demands of the modern age. He even wrote to the Queen Victoria, acknowledging that the House of Lords had long been an enemy of liberal governments. The Third Reform Act was eventually passed by Parliament in 1884, allowing all adult male householders and lodgers who paid £10 in annual rent to vote in rural areas and towns. This significantly expanded the electorate by 6 million, marking a substantial impact. However, complete democracy could not be achieved. The outbreak of World War I brought complete democracy. Conservatives expressed support for the Fourth Reform Bill that would pass in 1918. In 1918, the Representation of the People Act was enacted, granting voting rights to all males over the age of 21 and to women over the age of 30, enfranchising over 8 million women. While not entirely equal in all aspects, as women still required a property qualification and there was an age disparity, but it marked significant progress. Further reform occurred in 1928 when an act lowered the voting age for women to match that of men. Additionally, checks on the authority of the monarchy evolved through the Prime Minister, who has been accountable to Parliament rather than the monarch since the 1850s. These historical developments in England, such as the Magna Carta, Glorious Revolution and the English Bill of Rights, left a profound impact paving the way for constitutional monarchy, and these events also served as a model for all states. Tell me in comments, that was British imperialism beneficent in exporting the ideas of democracy and freedom or not to the world?